he want the real men. Something like that. You might catch something you don't want. So don't go too hard on the real men. Terence Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. The fight every boxing fan wants to see, but it's a fight we may not get. It's been a few months now since Errol Spence defeated Yordenis Ugas and called out Terence Crawford, but nothing has been, said or done in terms of promotion for the fight or anything. Terence Crawford has just said that the fight is edging closer, and Errol Spence has been a little quiet about speaking on terms of if the fight will happen. I feel like for this fight to happen, both parties need to really sit down and talk about a 50-50 split and not no 60-40 or 70-30 or anything like that. It has to be a 50-50 split because this is a 50-50 fight. And with Spence being off for a few months, I feel like he's the fresher fighter going into this as opposed to Crawford, who last fought Sean Porter, and that fight was last year, and he's had a little bit more shelf time compared to Errol Spence. I'm also worried about mandatories for the different sanctioning bodies because with Crawford with the WBO, I'm worried that his mandatory will come up, or maybe Virgil Ortiz might come up soon in terms of wanting that mandatory fight against Crawford. And I'm worried about Jaron Ennis, who is mandatory in the IBF, pushing a fight with Errol Spence. I know Errol Spence has dismissed Jaron Ennis, but Jaron Ennis is a problem for both of these fighters. And I feel like the Crawford Spence fight needs to come first in terms of moving the division along, because the division can't move if both of these fighters don't fight. I'm worried that they may move up to 154 and settle this fight, but then there won't be a title on the line since Jermell Charlo holds all the belts. This fight just has to happen, and I'm worried that it won't happen because Crawford is getting older. Errol Spence is in his early 30s, and the fight is just slipping away from both of them and the boxing fans. If this fight doesn't happen, it's going to, leave a big dent in terms of we didn't get to see the major mega fight of this era. So I'm a little concerned that both fighters aren't showing the gusto to go fight each other, and they're a bit hesitant. This is a fight that makes or breaks legacy, and both fighters really need to get in there with each other. It's a 50-50 fight in terms of skill set and even power. I feel like both fighters have the same power, and both fighters can match up pretty well with each other. Since Errol Spence is a southpaw, Crawford can negate that southpaw advantage by switching to southpaw himself since he is a switch hitter. But Spence is the naturally bigger guy for the division, and the longer he stays at 147 and the longer this fight kind of drags on, it's not going to get easy for him to cut weight since he is the bigger guy. He probably needs to move up to 154, but he does have to settle some business at 147. But yeah, both guys match up really good against each other. I'm just a little worried that they're not showing the priority to get this fight going. This fight's almost like a Sugar Ray Leonard versus Thomas Hearns type of big deal fight for the division. It'll solidify who is the top guy in the division. And if both fighters want to cement their legacy as a top fighter in the 147-pound history, they really need to fight each other. In terms of who I think will win the fight, it's a really close fight since both fighters have shown not to really slow down in terms of their endurance or their cardio as the fight goes on. I feel like Spence has the bigger gas tank in terms of he can throw a lot more punches and consistently keep going at the same pace, or he'll rev up the pace as we saw in his last fight against Ugas, whereas Crawford, he kind of starts off a little slow and likes to collect a bit of data and see, what the fighters bring in towards him. Like against Sean Porter, he took a couple rounds to figure Sean Porter out, figure out his timing and his darting and his movement. But once he did, he was catching Porter with some good clean shots. It's just, if Crawford starts a little too late, Spence could rake in rounds, and if Crawford can't hurt Spence and, put him on the back foot, Spence just keeps going. He won't stop. There's not like there's not a one gear for him. It's literally he'll switch gears and he'll keep switching until he gets to a point where he's broken you down or he's taken full control of the fight. I feel like Crawford, since he is a switch hitter, that's going to make a lot of problems against Spence. And I don't think Spence has ever fought anyone that has been a switch hitter. Maybe he has in the amateurs, but definitely not in the pro ranks. And Crawford can crack with either hand. So I feel like if Spence leaves himself open like he did against Ugas when he was trying to reach for his mouthpiece, and we all saw that Spence went, flying back to the ropes, and it could have been counted as a knockdown. But against Crawford, Crawford may stun Spence even more than Ugas did. Against Ugas, Spence was able to recover pretty quickly, but against Crawford, if that happens, I don't think Spence will be able to recover, and Crawford would probably get him out of there because Crawford is a really good fighter at finishing. As soon as he gets your man hurt, he did it against Porter. So we'll see. I feel like for keys to victory for Crawford to win this is continuously trying to switch hit against Spence and changing up his tactics each round. If he stays one-dimensional like Ugas did against Spence, we all saw what would happen. Spence keys to victory is not making any mistakes like he did against Ugas and keeping up a high output and forcing Crawford to use a lot of energy and move, because I feel like a lot of fighters haven't made Crawford adjust crazy, like adjust too much to their rhythm and stuff. He's able to kind of, keep his own rhythm and then bring that towards the later ends of the rounds where he's, fighting at his own pace. So it'll be interesting to see what will happen. I think maybe Errol Spence might win, but I feel like it's not a really concrete solution in terms of, oh yeah, I think he's going to win because of this. I just think he might win because he can maybe force the action just a little bit more and keep a higher pace going, whereas Crawford may tire out a little bit to where Errol Spence can take control of the fight. But then Crawford could catch Errol Spence if Errol Spence does make a mistake. So it is really a 50-50 fight. I'm interested to hear what you guys think in the comments. This is the Space Cowboy, and thank you.